I gave my sister $650 a week, but at family dinner she said, "You don't help enough, don't be a cheapskate." My parents took her side and said it was true. I smiled and said, "Then live without my money," and left, canceling everything, even their rent. This morning, her husband came to beg me, and my sister screamed, "Please don't cut us off." You never expect your family to stab you in the back. At least, not really. You grow up thinking that blood means something and builds a sort of unspoken loyalty. But sometimes, it just makes people feel entitled to take more from you. When they run out of ways to take from you, they turn on you as if you're the problem. My sister, Hannah, is 2 years younger than me. Like most siblings, we were close when we were kids. Somewhere along the way, after she married Ryan, things shifted. Slowly at first. Then all at once. Ryan hasn't had a job in 5 years. Not one. He claims that the job market is poor and that employers don't want to hire someone with vision. He starts projects, gets bored, and quits before anything turns into an actual paycheck. Meanwhile, Hannah doesn't work either. Sure, she has 2 kids, but that never stopped other people. It's not that they can't work. They just didn't want to. When their second child was born and they were about to be evicted, I didn't wait for them to ask for help. I stepped in. I told myself that's what family does. I started sending $650 every week without fail. No conditions. No reminders. I never threw it in their face. My wife wasn't thrilled about it, but she didn't argue with me about it either. She trusted me to do what felt right. At first, they were grateful. Or at least they pretended to be. But some people's gratitude has an expiration date. It wasn't long before Hannah started making little comments. She'd say things like, "Some people don't understand what real struggle looks like." She said I was lucky to have a job that let me play hero. She rolled her eyes when I posted vacation pictures. She once called my wife spoiled at a barbecue because we bought a new car. Yet, every time she needed something, I was the first person she texted. Rent short this month. Car battery died. Medical bills. Baby formula. I paid for it all. I told myself that no matter what she said, she was my sister. That's what you do for family. Then came that dinner. It was just a regular Saturday night at our parents' house. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and kids running around. My mom was talking about her garden. My dad had the game on low in the background. Everything was completely ordinary until it wasn't. We were halfway through dessert when Hannah set down her fork and looked at me across the table. Calmly, she said, "You're not helping enough. Don't be stingy." I blinked. I thought she was joking. I waited for someone else to laugh. No one did. Then, without looking up from his plate, my dad added, "Well, she's not wrong." In that moment, everything inside me went quiet. It was as if a part of me shut down and another part came online. I looked at the people I'd spent my whole life trying to help and support. They looked back at me as if I hadn't done enough. So I smiled, stood up, and said, "Then live without my money." My wife didn't say a word. She just got up with me. We gathered our kids and left. On the drive home, I didn't say much. I opened my phone and started canceling everything. I canceled the weekly transfers. I pulled the plug on their rent payments. I closed the shared accounts. I cut off the grocery card they used every month as if it were theirs. I was done. The next morning at 7:42 a.m., Ryan showed up outside my house. No call. No text. He just showed up and started banging on my front door like it was a matter of life and death. He wasn't angry. He was desperate. He told me that they couldn't pay the rent, that their landlord had already called, and that they didn't even have enough gas to get to the food bank. Hannah was in the van behind him. I could hear her screaming, even with the door shut. She wasn't asking. She was demanding. She was telling me that I couldn't do this to them. That I had responsibilities. She said I was selfish. And that was just the beginning of what turned into a full-on war. I didn't open the door that morning. I stood behind it and listened to Ryan's voice shift from pleading to panic. I knew that if I opened the door, even a crack, he would start with the sob story, and I would cave. That was the old me. The one who still thought they cared about something other than what I could give them, deep down. So I let him knock. Then I let him leave. 3 hours later, my mom called. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. First from her, then from Hannah. My dad didn't text, he never does, but I saw that he viewed my WhatsApp status, so I knew he was in the loop. The messages started out polite. We need to talk. Don't do anything rash. This is family. Then the tone changed. How could you let your niece and nephew go hungry? Your sister is in tears. Is that what you want? You're punishing children for adult problems. Shame on you. It was like watching someone throw a tantrum in real time. The funny part was that not a single one of them asked me what I needed. No one asked, "Are you okay?" No one asked why I cut them off. Deep down, they already knew. By Tuesday, calls were coming from every direction. My uncle texted me. A cousin I hadn't seen in 2 years messaged me, asking what was going on. Hannah had told everyone a watered-down version of events, portraying me as a cold-hearted brother who suddenly turned his back on the family. She kept using the phrase, abandoning us. I ignored it all. That is, until my mom showed up at my office. She never visits me at work. Ever. I was in the middle of a project meeting when my receptionist came in and told me that there was a woman there who insisted that she was my mother. I stepped out. There she was in the waiting area with her arms crossed, looking as if I'd just sold family secrets to a tabloid. She didn't ask if she could sit down. She didn't ask if I had time. She just launched into it. You embarrassed Hannah. You hurt her children. She's your sister, Ethan. I kept my voice calm. I said, you all sat there while she called me stingy. You all agreed with her. After everything. She looked at me as if she couldn't understand me. Like I was speaking another language. She's struggling, she said. She's not herself. I asked, and what about me? Am I not allowed to get tired? To stop being a human ATM? She replied, you're better off than them. I nodded. Then I told her the truth. This wasn't about money. It was about disrespect. I said that I wasn't going to finance people who hated me for having what they chose not to earn. She didn't say much after that. She just stood up and walked out. She didn't even say goodbye. That night, I received a new message from Hannah. No. Hi. No. Can we talk? Just this. You better fix this, Ethan. You won't like what happens if you don't. I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked her. She was right about one thing. She wasn't going to like what happened next. By Thursday, the silence felt suspicious. No calls, no texts. Just quiet. That wasn't how Hannah operated. When she wanted something, she clawed at it until she got it, or burned everything down trying. Then I got the call. Not from her, though, from their landlord. Apparently, Ryan and Hannah had told him that I was going through something, and that the payments would resume once I'd calmed down. He'd waited 2 weeks. Their rent was past due, and he was tired of excuses. He asked if I was planning to resume the payments. I told him no, clearly. I said he should treat them like any other tenants. He sighed and said he figured as much. He added that he'd be serving them notice by the end of the week. I didn't feel good after the call. In fact, I didn't feel anything at all. That night, I sat on the back porch for a long time. I thought about every time I'd stepped in and bailed them out without being asked. I remembered when Hannah guilt-tripped me into paying for her anniversary dinner because she said they deserved a night out too, and she saw that I had taken my wife to a resort. I also remembered when I bought Ryan a laptop so he could start his freelance business. He pawned it 3 months later. They didn't just use me. They resented me for being able to help. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about hardship. It was about pride. They hated that I had what they didn't, and that they needed me. So I stopped giving. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel it all. All of it. So I started pulling the rug out from under them. First, I called the cell phone provider and cancelled the family plan. I hadn't looked at the bill in a while. Turns out, Hannah had added 2 tablets, and Ryan had upgraded his phone on my account last year. Everything was still in my name. I shut down every line except mine and my wife's. They would find out the next time they tried to order an Uber. Next was the Costco card. Years ago, I added my parents to it so they could use it if they needed to buy things. I never thought anything of it. But out of curiosity, I checked the recent activity. Groceries, TVs, and tires. Not for emergencies, just free shopping. So, I cancelled the card completely. Then came the car. This one was personal. 2 years ago, Ryan's car broke down, and he and his family begged me for help. I bought them a used SUV, put it in my name, and paid the insurance. They promised they would start paying the insurance after 6 months. They never paid a cent. So, I filed for voluntary repossession. A towing company picked up the car from their street at 3 in the morning. I didn't say anything. I didn't send any warning. I wanted them to wake up and realize what they had taken for granted. By Friday, things had escalated quickly. Hannah called me from a different number. She left a voicemail. It was 5 minutes of pure rage and self-pity. She accused me of abandoning her children, said I was drunk with power, and then, in the same breath, said I owed her another chance to explain. Then came the text to my wife. Paragraphs. Emotional blackmail. She said I was tearing apart the family, and that she never asked for any of this. Never asked? I opened my phone and scrolled. Can you cover daycare? We need groceries. We're short on rent. The car broke down again. Can you cover Ryan's therapy? We're out of formula. Can you help with the electricity? Just until the end of the month. It went on and on. I took screenshots of 5 of these messages and sent them to my wife. She blocked Hannah. I didn't expect what came next. On Friday night, I received a text from my mom. They're here. Just for a few days. It wasn't until the next morning that I understood what she meant when I saw Hannah's Facebook post of the guest room at my parents' place with the caption, "Back where we're truly loved. Family first." That's when it hit me. They didn't go silent because they were giving up. They were switching hosts. Instead of holding them accountable, my parents welcomed it. They moved in like royalty. My dad started forwarding me grocery receipts saying, "Since we're feeding extra mouths now." My mom called to say they needed help with utilities. Just until they get back on their feet. I laughed. Then I told her no. She asked, "You're not going to help us either?" I replied, "I helped for 3 years. I'm done now." And I meant it. But I knew it wouldn't stop there. If I cut off Hannah and they were now living with my parents, cutting her off wouldn't be enough. I'd have to cut them all off. I had a plan for that. They thought I would give in. They thought that eventually, I'd crack and send another transfer, pay another bill, and feel guilty enough to give in. But they underestimated how quickly someone can go from being exhausted to being finished. I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply done. I waited a few days. I let them settle into the comfort of my parents' house. I let them start spending again. Then my mom texted me about needing help with groceries. My dad asked if I could spot him the money for the gas bill until payday, even though he retired 4 years ago and hasn't had a payday since. I didn't respond. What they didn't know was that I'd already spoken to my bank. Years ago, I set up a second account linked to theirs for emergency transfers. I canceled it. I shut down access to every shared app, account, and service I'd ever given them. Then I logged into the utility company's website. It turns out that the water and electricity at my parents' house were still in my name, a leftover from years ago when they were short on cash, and I offered to take responsibility for them until things settled down. I never thought about it again. I thought about it now. So I called and disconnected the service, effective immediately. That same night, they were without power. I waited for the message, and it didn't take long. My mom texted me, asking if there was an issue with the account. I didn't respond. Then she tried calling. I sent it to voicemail. She texted again. Your father is upset. Please fix this. Still, I didn't respond. The next morning, I received a long message from Hannah. She said I was being childish. She said that I was weaponizing money to punish people. She called me a coward and said our kids would grow up without cousins because of me. She said our kids would grow up without cousins because of me. She said our family would never recover from what I'd done. She ended with, "You'll regret this." But I never regretted it. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. That weekend, I told my wife that we were taking the kids on a road trip. No phones, no emails, no messages. Just the four of us. We stayed in a cabin by the lake. We cooked over a fire. My kids ran around happily. My wife looked at me as if I were finally present. When we got home, I had 6 voicemails waiting for me. 1 was from Ryan. 3 were from my mom. 1 was from Hannah. I figured the last one was from my dad using a friend's phone. I deleted them all without listening. I'd finally accepted something I should have understood a long time ago. Helping people isn't love if they expect it. It's only love when they appreciate it. They never did. They tried to play the long game. There was passive guilt, subtle messages, and familiar faces reaching out. They thought that if they softened the pressure, I'd give in on my own. I didn't. On Monday, I walked into my office and saw something strange, a folded piece of paper sitting dead center on my desk. No envelope. No name. I unfolded it. 3 pages. My mother's handwriting. I hadn't seen her handwriting in years, not since she used to leave notes on the fridge when we were kids. This note was different. She called it a plea. She said she was asking me one last time to come back to the table. She didn't mention the years of silence after Hannah criticized me for something trivial. She didn't mention how they all sat still when I was humiliated at that dinner. She didn't mention the money, the car, the phone bills, or the rent. She just said, "It's not too late." I read it once. Then, I shredded all 3 pages and asked the office manager to check the building's visitor log. It turns out my dad had come in earlier that morning. He used to know the guy at the front desk. That was the last day that guy worked there. They didn't stop there. On Tuesday afternoon, I received a Facebook message from someone I hadn't spoken with since high school. She said Hannah had reached out to her because she was worried about me. I told her that I had experienced some kind of mental spiral, and that my wife was manipulating me. Hannah didn't know how to stop taking. Even if she wasn't getting anything, she still wanted to control the narrative. I replied, "Tell her I'm fine. If she messages you again, block her." On Wednesday, my wife's sister called. She said my mom had called her directly, saying she was worried for my kids. She claimed that I was pulling the kids away from their extended family, and that it wasn't healthy. She said that good people don't isolate their children. That was it. I sat down that night and wrote a message. 1 message. I copied and pasted it to every number and account still connected to them in any way. 1 line. "This is your final notice. You are not welcome in my life. Any attempt to contact me, my wife, or my children will be considered harassment and handled legally. Do not test this." I blocked them all: emails, phone calls, social media, everything. For 3 days, nothing. It was blissful. Then Friday came. I pulled into my driveway and saw them. All of them. My parents' car was parked partly on the grass. Hannah's kids were running around like it was their own front yard. Ryan stood next to the porch with his hands in his pockets, as if he owned the place. Hannah and my mother were already at the door, knocking. Like they lived there. I parked the car and sat inside for 10 seconds before stepping out. I didn't yell. I didn't ask what they were doing. I just walked up and stood between them and my front door. Hannah started first, as she always does. She said I was being cruel. She said they were only there because I forced their hand. She said they didn't come for money, they came for family. Ryan nodded behind her like a worn-out puppet. My dad stood near the car with his arms crossed. He didn't say anything. He never did when it counted. My mom stepped in with a soft voice, saying they were worried and that she missed her grandkids. She said it had gone on long enough. I let them finish. Then I told them clearly. "You don't come to my house. You don't message my wife. You don't talk to my kids. If I see any of you here again, I'll call the police. I've given you every chance to stop this behavior. You chose not to. It's not my responsibility anymore. Hannah tried to interrupt and change the subject, but I wouldn't let her. I opened the front door, stepped inside, and closed it without another word. Then I locked it. I called my lawyer. I installed cameras around the property that same weekend. We ordered pizza that night. My kids were confused but calm. My wife put on a movie. I sat on the couch looking at them, the only people who cared whether I was okay, and knew I'd made the right decision. But I should have known they wouldn't go quietly. They weren't finished. Not yet. I should have expected it. People like them don't know when they've lost. They don't leave the table when they've lost all their chips. They flip the table, play the victim, and try to rob the casino on the way out. It started with a letter from Child Protective Services. A real one. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I opened it and felt my stomach drop. Someone had reported concerns about the emotional well-being of my kids. There were allegations of isolation from family and coercive household behavior. They didn't even try to hide it. It had Hannah written all over it. The caseworker came by. She was polite, professional. She asked the right questions. She talked to the kids, looked around the house, and even asked about school. She left with a smile, saying there was clearly nothing wrong. I asked her point blank, "Do you know who filed it?" She looked uncomfortable, but she replied, "Yes, and I'll just say it's not uncommon for family disputes to result in false reports." The rage that hit me was different this time. It wasn't hot. It was cold. Focused. My sister had weaponized the system. She tried to use my kids, my own children, to scare me back into line. I called my lawyer the next day. He filed a cease and desist order against Hannah, Ryan, and my parents. Harassment. Slander. Malicious interference. He sent everything he could fit into a packet. I didn't stop there. I contacted the landlord of my parents' house. As it turned out, they weren't the owners, they were renters. I gave the landlord a full background on Hannah and Ryan. I gave him the name of their old landlord, who had called me when they stopped paying. I didn't have to say much. The landlord thanked me and said he'd reevaluate the terms of their lease. I also got the church involved, the one they liked to lean on when it was time to play the sympathy card. I sent a calm, polite email to the pastor. I outlined the entire situation. I provided documentation of payments, screenshots of messages, and even a copy of the CPS letter. 2 days later, Hannah's Facebook post about being betrayed by her own blood mysteriously vanished. So did her profile. I wasn't done. My wife and I changed the locks. We got new phone numbers. We met with a counselor for the kids, just to make sure that none of this nonsense affected them. We made it clear to the school that no one but us could pick them up. Period. Then, one night I sat at my desk, opened my email, and wrote one final message. It wasn't for them. It was to myself. A list. Titled things I no longer feel responsible for. My sister's rent. My parents' bills. Ryan's unemployment. Their expectations. Their gossip. Their disappointment. Their version of family. I saved it. I printed it. I folded it and put it in my wallet. I haven't heard from any of them since. I still see their names pop up every once in a while, tagged by mutual friends or whispered about in family circles. I don't respond. I don't comment. My wife and I took the kids out of state last weekend. We stayed in a cabin in the mountains. No reception. Firewood, stars, and silence. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. I wasn't running from anyone. I'd already closed the door. This time, it was locked,